The Wide Awakening presents Activate What's Possible, a flight school introductory webinar. And now, here is author, speaker, and coach, Jennifer Hough.
Hi, everybody from all over the world. Just such a pleasure to have you here. All right, so what are we talking about today? Well, what we are going to dive into together is the idea of flying. You know, I got to tell you, I started writing, I started sort of brainstorming with the collective wisdom that I commune with, and it's interesting what I came up with, because what I came up with was pretty in alignment with flight school. In that, what I came up with was, you're going to show up on the line, it doesn't matter what notes you wrote, and you're going to feel everybody and where they're at, and although we might do lots of things that I wrote down, it has very little to do with what I wrote down and more to do with how can I serve? How can I show up in the flow with you? How can I be there with all of you and actually be in that connection in the present moment, knowing exactly what the flow of consciousness is asking for? How do we do that, right? So everyone, I think let's all get on the same page for tonight, because, you know, I find that these kinds of conversations can go pretty long, pretty deep. We'll be about, I would say, probably about an hour and 10 minutes with the conversation about flying and flourishing, and then we're going to be another 20 minutes to a half an hour with questions that you have. So I'm going to ask you some questions first. And again, some of you know me, some of you don't. I'm going to share a couple of very personal things up front that might assist you to kind of get where I'm coming from. And then we can dive into what it takes to fly. I think those stories will also assist everyone to see what it looks like to fly. So my questions are to everybody. Are you willing to let go of how it's been and what you already know to know something different? So that's my question. Are you willing to let go of how it's been to have it be different? In other words, unfamiliar, but if unfamiliar equaled expansive and heart-filling and fulfilling, if expansive equaled it didn't matter if you knew what the results were, you just knew that the journey was so rich with the experience that is beyond what you could dream up, would you be willing to let go of what is familiar to you? Would you be willing to let go of even what you know about what you think I'm going to say? Even for people who've done tons of our programs, are you willing to just drop everything you already knew? Even if you've done a lot of our work, and if you haven't done any of our work, then you're in the right place. That's perfect. Because you see, all of consciousness operates, you know, most of consciousness, meaning 99.139% of consciousness, let's even put it differently, 99.139% of existence lives in what physicists call dark matter. And dark matter is just a fun word for I don't know what it is. And the interesting thing about dark matter is this, that the I don't know what it is, they don't know what it is because it isn't molecular, it isn't atomic, it isn't three-dimensional. It's something that we don't yet understand yet. And in order to be in the flow, and in order to be in a dance with all of consciousness, you kind of have to be willing to understand what the relationship is between that which is not yet in form, and that which hasn't yet landed in 3D. In other words, that which most everything is made of, but we don't even know what it is. Even the smartest physicists in the world don't know what it is. And yet, and yet it makes up most of us. It makes up most of what surrounds us. Isn't that funny? So how do we dance with the unimagined? How do we dance with something that hasn't yet taken form? That's really the question today. How do we be in total fluidity in life? So the next question I'm going to ask you is, would everybody be willing to be really curious tonight? Would everyone be even if you've taken flight school, are you willing to be really curious, like even more curious, like let go of what you think you already know, kind of be in the what does that mean? Is everyone willing to do that? Because if we're willing to do that, then, and if you're on Instant Teleseminar, if you're willing to be really curious, like go where no one's gone before, just press *2 if you're on the phone. And if you are on webinars on air, just give me a big yes. And I see tons and tons of yeses. Cool. So there is one final question I have. Maybe you don't even know, maybe you have a sense of what truly flying feels like. But what if we drop our sense of what truly flying feels like right now? Would everyone be willing to do that so that we can actually feel and experience tonight what that dance looks like? In other words, let go of all the preconceived notions about it. It's kind of like, you know, I did this post on Facebook a couple of days ago, and it said, you know, stop trying to define love. Love is an experience. It's not, you know, it doesn't need a box. And so what I'd love for everyone today to do is have the experience rather than get the definitions for the mind. So first and foremost, we want to do that. The reason we're doing that tonight, the reason for this call, is because, you know, this will be our 4th year of doing flight school. And flight school is a 12-month program that we do. And whether you've done it or not, whether you're in it now or not, tonight gets to be an experience of sort of breaking past the boundaries of what we think keeps us safe and find a level of safety in the entire universe rather than trying to keep everything in a box. So what if you could let the entire universe in instead of trying to control it? I'm going to ask that question again. What if you could let the entire, just really feel this, okay? That's the other thing I'm going to say before we really dive into the meat of this. What if instead of controlling life, controlling what happens to you, you could feel so in your flow, so integrated with life that you are no longer interested in keeping it small and safe. You actually could feel, sense, and integrate fully with all of the skill sets so that you could let the entire universe in, all of consciousness in, and it would actually facilitate you in the dance of blossoming the life that you were supposed to have before you got here. Wouldn't that be cool? If you could just go direct with consciousness and just think that your fears were irrelevant. It'd be pretty cool, right? All right, you guys. So, diving in. The reason I said this is much like flight school, you know, when I'm having a conversation that means a lot to me, like this one, you know, my mind and the part of me, I want to have notes. I want to have things like I want someone to give me the play-by-play. And, or at least the part of me that I would call my ego, the part of me that tries to keep me safe, would want notes. The truth is, I'd rather just really serve you. And to have the flexibility and creativity to be able to fully serve you and show up, I got to live in the spaces between the notes. The notes are nice, and then there's what I like to call the or better. So All right. Again, I love questions. It actually helps me focus in on how I can assist you more. So, and I love all your comments like, is it on or do we have to sit tight? Peter, I'm wondering if you're having technical issues. Steve's saying, I'm wiggling my toes, yes. Tina's saying, I don't know what the dance looks like, but I like it anyways. And everyone else is a big yes, and thank you, everyone, for that. Okay. I'm going to breathe. Why don't we just breathe together for a second? Even watch where your mind goes as we breathe. Oh, I know what she's doing. She's breathing so we'll get grounded. She's breathing so we'll get in her body. Oh, she needs to get grounded, and she wants all of us to breathe with her so that she gets grounded. Oh, okay. Do you see how the mind goes nuts with every little thing? How about we just breathe with no reason? How about we just breathe in the space between the thoughts? How about we just breathe in the space called possibility, where the orbiters live? That 99% that hasn't even landed in 3D yet lives. So just breathe a few times. All right. So I want to tell you a story. The question I asked my general manager before we got started here was, what's my flight school story? You know, I've been with, I think it's like almost 50 people through flight school. And I've watched some incredible, mind-bending, beyond what I could have imagined things happen. And I thought, well, how can I teach? You know, I can't teach what I haven't lived. I personally cannot do it. And actually, it's very hard to authentically do that anyways, and I'm sure you guys recognize that for all of you that are coaches and practitioners and all that kind of stuff. Very hard to, well, it's not only hard to teach, you won't get an awful lot of clients, so you'll be filled with struggle if you're not congruent. So I was thinking, you know, I have so many stories. What really is my story of flight school? How could people see what flying actually looks like in my life? And I think it started, you know, long before I was even, you know, an adult. And I'm just going to share with you a couple of personal things. When I was growing up, I always, I mean, this is really odd, but I had to have eye operations. I had to have eye operations when I was little that were very, very scary. And I had something called monocular vision. I still do have it, actually. And so it makes my depth perception. It makes me see differently than other people. Interesting, right? And because I always saw differently than other people, I also experienced life much differently than other people because I didn't see it the same way. And so I already had, you know, had something that put me in the not belonging club. So maybe for you, there was something that put you in the not belonging club. It made you feel different. It made you feel outside. And then what happened to me is I had curly hair that my mother cut. I had square glasses. I was always taller than everybody else. I noticed it's almost like the universe deliberately designed me so that I would feel outside. I was always taller than all the girls. I was taller than most of the boys growing up. And what would happen is my way of entertaining myself, because I felt so outside, was to sort of see how people are and what goes on and all that kind of stuff. And I remember one day where it sort of culminated. I was 17 years old, and I was standing outside of a room where my dad was watching TV. My dad was watching the news, and I was 17 years old, and I was looking at the news, and I went, I still don't understand. I mean, I thought this at 5 years old, but I voiced it this time. I said, I still don't understand why we just don't talk to each other. Why do people go to war? How come we don't say something? Why, when we have all the solutions to, you know, the polar ice caps, or why we have solutions, we have ways of having other cars that don't run on gasoline. We have all these, I just don't understand. I don't get it. I said, you know what? I said this to my dad. I said, you know what? I I want to leave the world a different place than what I came into. I really believe that human beings have it in them. I really believe that it's possible that we can shift the planet. That's where it started. And my dad looked at me and he said, Jennifer, he still does this, by the way. He said, Jennifer, you know, give your head a shake. He said it differently than that. Give your head a shake, you know. And it's sad because even a week ago I went to visit my dad, and my dad was telling me about something that was going on in the world about the water. It was something related to the environment. He was so upset because the world's water supply, this and that. And I thought I couldn't watch that all day long. I know that I'm designed, I'm called. I have this internal calling inside of my solar plexus, in my heart, that in my cells, that calls me to something more. And I didn't see very many other people with that almost agitation inside, that there's something more to life, that it should be more fluid, that we can be more harmonious, that there's something more possible, that we can live longer, that, you know, all of these things were very real for me. So I started squelching them at 17 years old because my dad told me to pull my head out of my butt. I started squelching them because I really didn't see anyone else that had this feeling, which I didn't know then was an instinct. It's a cellular instinct. The people around me sort of saw it as pie in the sky thinking, except for my physics teacher in high school. When I was 18 years old, Dr. Koja and I had a very philosophical conversation because, again, I didn't want to have the conversations that everyone else was having. A very philosophical conversation about existence and about whether it's a religious-based or a scientific-based. And in that conversation, what he said to me was, Jennifer, I'm not sure if conservation of energy theory is true. Now, don't get all freaked out because I said something scientific. I promise tonight won't be scientific. But conservation of energy theory says that, you know, everything creates within a bubble. It's all contained. You can't create something new. And I said, I don't believe that at all. And that doesn't feel true. And that's the first time I realized that we have cellular instincts. He said to me, and remember, I'm 18 and he's, I don't know, he's from Africa somewhere, big, round guy. Like, it was just, you could tell that he didn't belong either. And I said, okay, Dr. Koja, he called me Huffy. He said, Huffy, you know, yes, okay. You know what? My cells feel the instinct too that that's not true. I think it's true in a 3D plane. I think when we go beyond the 3D plane, creation is just creating all the time. We just don't know the rules yet. And he, just by saying that guy changed my life. So wherever you are, Dr. Koja, thank you very much. Because I never forgot that. And that's the first time I realized that it's okay not to believe what everyone else believes. That it's okay not to try to fit in with everybody else's thinking. And then, in fact, if more harmony was to be in my life or in the world around me, if we were to really be able to create upon creation, if we were really to be able to manifest all that we came here for, it's going to take people that aren't willing to accept the status quo. So if you are someone that can be a bit of a tree shaker, maybe you're someone that questions the way things have always been, maybe you're someone that's super curious about, you know, instincts and intuition and guides and guidance and how that happens and how consciousness speaks to us. Maybe you're someone that doesn't accept the dogma that you're fed, even in the New Agey paradigms. If you're also someone that feels like there are always deeper truths, and that calling, that there's something that's not known yet, that's not danced with yet, that's your dance. Maybe you don't know it fully, but you really are called to dance that dance. Like me, like Dr. Koja did for me, I would love to share with you that there's nothing wrong with your thinking. In fact, I would call those people, you, me, people who actually have the capacity to change how it's been, because we're not willing to settle for being told by someone bigger or older or whatever the case may be that it has to be the way it is. So in my life experiences, it doesn't have to be the way it is. It's always expanding forward. It can always get juicier. Which leads to, what is the purpose of life? Well, let's just put it this way. Even on a call like this, there are webinars and seminars and teachers that will tell me that there's a format for making sure that I close a sale. And I'm going to tell you right now, you've probably seen already, I'm not following a format. I'm not interested in a format. I'm actually interested in doing exactly what I set out to do when I was 17 and 18 years old. So why I say that is because I'm going to ask you tonight to do something, I'm just going to give permission for what we all want to do anyways. We're going to do it like the Not Belonging Club does it. We're going to do it like Tree Shakers do it. And that is, I really want you to feel tonight where you resonate with what it is that we're talking about. So instead of rationalizing what I'm saying, instead of trying to make it make sense within a paradigm you already know, instead of trying to figure out whether something is for you or not for you, I'm asking you tonight to actually do what it is that we teach. And that is, and what it is that really honors that feeling you've had since you were very little. That honoring is that instinct that you've always had that there's something more to all of this, even beyond what you see in the regular world of even New Agey or personal growthy teaching. The instinct that you have is what we're speaking to tonight. So, I've had many times where I had my own flight school. My own flight school happened, it started then at 17 years old, then it started with Dr. Koja, and then it really restarted again when I left a big multinational company where I was working as an economist and a purchasing manager, and I just left in the middle of a performance review because my instincts were calling me. And every time I followed those instincts, what I like to call the or better happened. So the or better is like what happens when you fully show up in life and you don't care about the outcome and you let go of your attachment to what's supposed to be, and then what happens is that consciousness has the space, because now you haven't made up an idea of where it has to land. You're dancing with consciousness in the space between the three dimensions, and all of a sudden, that's where the or better lives. In other words, if infinite wisdom thought you were a good idea, infinite wisdom got you to this planet, infinite wisdom dreamed you into existence, and you were not yet here, you were actually in the space between things being three-dimensional, and all of a sudden you're here. then pretty good stuff comes from the space between. You are the or better. You are a living example of the or better. I wonder what happens with a bunch of infinite wisdom created beings when they stop trying to manipulate consciousness, control the outcomes, feel safe, feel comfortable. I wonder what happens when comfortability and safety go out the window and you actually are going to dance with all of consciousness as the piece of the puzzle of heaven and earth that you came to be was meant to be, as that incredible, expansive invention of pure possibility. I wonder what happens when you live there, what happens when you dance with other people who are waking up to living there too. Now you're dancing with people that no longer live by the confines of the expectations, rules, and regulations of society. It doesn't mean that we're rebellious. It just means that we're interested in the harmonious flow that exists between. That harmonious flow has no resistance. It has no problems. It has no worries. It certainly isn't concerned about safety. It's not concerned about fears. Comfortability or uncomfortability doesn't even exist. In that space between the atoms, in the space between the electrons, all that exists is pure possibility. And then you show up as creator consciousness, ready to create upon creation. And if all of the density of the man-made stuff, the shoulds, musts, and have-tos, all the shoulds, all the rules, all the have-tos, and that's when the outcomes starting to flow. That's when the outcomes start to actually come to you. That's when the or betters, or the what a lot of people call miracles, actually become normals. And the more I made choices, and the more I developed the skill sets, and the more I integrated with the way I was supposed to be, and actually I knew that all human beings were supposed to be, the more everything would come to me. So my question is to you, what if all the money, time, obligation, shoulds, strategies, mental figuring out so you can feel safe, what if all of that stuff, it's not that it went away, because if you think it's going to go away, and if your strategy is to make it go away, it's going to take a long time for you to be free. Let me say that again. If you're trying to excavate all the reasons how come you're not flying in order to fly, it will take you lifetimes. But that's what most programs, personal growth, that's what most of those are built on, is analyzing how come you're not flying. And in all honesty, here, we're so much more interested in how do you fly. Because what happens when you activate your ability to fly and you start embodying those skills is that all of that how come you can't becomes incredibly disinteresting. And in physics, when you have a bunch of density, when you have a bunch of shoulds, musts, and have-tos, when you have all those things, what happens is when you start giving more interest to this, to the flight, then you're giving energy to this. All of a sudden, this gets so much energy that it actually has the power to transmute the very things that are stopping you, thousands of things at a time. Ashley's just saying, as you started talking about allowing the universe in, releasing all fears and allowing life to happen differently than before. A beautiful blackbird with a white face and neck rustled in the bushes and looked up at me. But of course. Now, I don't want you to also misread what I'm saying. Because it would be easy, you know, hey, how many times have you heard, hey, stop being afraid, release your fears, there's nothing to be afraid of. Oh my God, your past, get over it. It's in the past. Come on, that's why they call it the past. It's gone. Get over it. Oh, you've got a pattern? Oh my God. Just you know, just create a new pattern. Just get over it. Get over the old pattern. What do you need that pattern for? Who cares? Oh, you want a project? You know, I have a friend. He's in Maui. I'm actually going to go and stay with him. And he's really funny. He's so clear and clean about his energy and what he does. And he's so got an idea of how he is. When he operates in life, when someone comes up to him and says, listen, Tom, you know, I'm having problems getting started on this project. He doesn't even have a relationship to the word problem. He doesn't understand struggle. How cool would that be to have as a default? You can't even say that to him. Fascinating, isn't it? He just doesn't even relate to the idea of problem because he's so expanded in his capacity and his skill sets to create upon creation that stoppability doesn't even make sense to him. What if that was you in love, in relationships, in difficult conversations? You just knew what there was to say. You were so clear. Thinking about what the other person thought about you was completely irrelevant. You understand? So, and please, you guys, again, I'm going to say, you know, ask questions. If you guys have any questions, particularly if you're on Instant Teleseminar, you can press *2. I just took all the hands down. So if you have any questions, press *2. So, you know, I do have some people on the line that have taken flight school before. I think it's really important to have the discussion so that everyone can be in the paradigm of what it actually is first. And in talking about flight school, what's going to happen is the boundaries that you've placed on yourself are going to start to lose their coherence. They won't be coherent anymore. They won't be locked into each other. You're going to start, your right brain is going to start talking to your left brain and showing it things that your left brain it's trying to keep you safe. It's going to show things to your left brain that don't make that safety mechanism make sense anymore. So you're going to have to let go of things that you thought you knew. Even maybe right now you're kind of feeling a little shaky within what you knew. So I see some people saying that the muscles in their neck are tingling and different things are happening. Very cool, you guys. So let me talk about, it's so funny, just hilarious. Let me talk about some of the outcomes of flight. So what I want you to do is we're going to create the outcome of what it means to transcend every fear, what it means to be on the journey, not necessarily transcending every fear like all your fears go away, more like really not caring about your fears, having them not pull on you. Let's create the vision of flying, not meaning let's just get rid of every bad habit you have or every habit that doesn't work for you. Instead of creating the vision of getting rid of them all, let's create the vision of being in such direct communion with consciousness that the habits that do work for you are just right in front of you, and you don't even have an interest in the other habits anymore. Let's create a vision where you don't have to be afraid of people anywhere. So now it's not about protecting and putting white light around you and sending someone love and doing all these. They're all very polarized things. It actually is completely from a basis of separation, which, if you're like me, you're someone who's here to shake the trees and to cause more understanding and compassion in the world in whatever way that you do it. You can be a grocery bagger. It really doesn't matter what your job is. This is not about your job. This is about how you be when you're doing it. It's about the piece of the puzzle of heaven and earth that you really are. So let's create a vision from the beginning of history to the end. And we're going to do a little activation. So if everyone wants to breathe, that would be great. I'm just going to answer Heather's question. She said, what did you say about those deep core beliefs that hide too deeply to kind of find them? They're so underneath. I have enough experience with tens of thousands of people at this point to say to you, Heather, it's so powerful. Pretend you've never heard what I'm about to say before, okay? Just pretend you've never heard it before. Pretend like this is news to you, because I want you to hear it like you've never heard it before. What if, hear it with your cells, hear it with the space that you exist in between the atoms. So what happens is, and we'll get to the activation in a second, I just want to answer this question. What happens, Heather, is this. Now, everybody, I want to be clear about the question. Does everyone have a sense of perhaps having some issues where it doesn't matter what you do, how much work you do, where you go, those issues seem so rooted in you. It doesn't matter how many excavations, how many energy workers, how many Reiki masters, how many network chiropractors you go to. You still watch this pattern play out. You still have this fear that tries to micromanage the results. You still, get confused because confusion is an excellent distraction from your path. You still have people resist you. You still have people who, you don't understand how to have them fully play with you. You still keep people separate. Okay, so here's you, okay? Here's you, and again, you're very skinny. Good for you. So kind of short, though, and your head's kind of big. I'm just saying. So what happens is, with this you, is that something happens to you when you're 5. Your father leaves your mother. And at 5 years old, the perception still is the world revolves around you, so you make it mean something about you. That is actually childhood development science. You're still in the it's all about me, which means that your father left your mother because there's something wrong with you. There's something that you're not doing right. So now you realize that you have to get life right. So now you've got a little bit of density. Okay, I'm going to make up a paradigm over here that's going to run me. It's going to pull on me. I've got to try to be lovable enough that people don't leave. All right. So my next one, I'm going to make up, when I was a teenager, I had really bad acne. So all these people made fun of me. So, it's really important that I hide, I become shy. So that's going to be a filter through which I live my life. Oh, and by the way, what happened to me is like a lot of people didn't have their act together in my house. There's a lot of danger, a lot of volatility, didn't know what to do. So what I have to do is, before I do anything else, I have to make sure that I know what the outcomes are going to be so I can feel safe. You know, I have to do that. Oh my God. And by the way, I got really, really hurt. I got divorced in a marriage and he cheated on me. And so what I have to do is now I have to test everyone. I want to make sure that I test everyone that I come across, because if I test everyone, then what's going to happen is I can see whether they're worthy of my trust. Let me just say this, Heather. The only thing you can trust is the entire universe. If you start placing your trust in human beings, you will be very let down, because you see, we're still figuring ourselves out. That's part of what flight school is all about. What you can trust is the love of the universe. That is the only thing you can trust. Above and beyond that, human beings are fallible, because we've lived for the last 18,000 years in a world where we chose to forget that we actually are that universe filled with love. We forgot that, and we thought that everything was limited. That consciousness was limited, not just the consciousness, that people who could access infinite wisdom, that was limited. You know, that love was limited, that good people were limited, that safety was limited, that food was limited, that gas was limited, that resources were limited, that air is limited supply, that good water is in limited supply. Everything is limited. And of course, now we're manifesting, you know, we think it's evident, but actually it can change so powerfully in an instant. It can change so powerfully in an instant when we decide to change. Just like activating the truth of who you are, you give that energy, and all the density over here becomes very uninteresting. Now it can't pull on you. These are all pulls, and you have a relationship with all of those pulls. And that relationship is on Wi-Fi, back and forth to yourselves. You said to your body that that was important and that you had to protect yourself from those things. And you created a whole density, and a lot of these things are fundamental to your survival, or so your protective mechanisms, what I like to call a well-practiced habit, thinks. But a well-practiced habit is not the truth. A well-practiced habit is simply a habit. So what about those ones that lie insidiously, that no matter what you do, they don't seem to be able to go away? My answer to you, my dear, because most people die with those, this is my answer to you. Just fly and you'll stop caring. Truly. Learn the skills to fly. Can you feel that to be true? If you had the confidence to be able to act upon infinite wisdom and fly forward, if you had the confidence to stop doubting yourself because you weren't within what everyone told you you should do. It's no longer about you should look a certain way, you should be a certain way, you should be likable, everyone should like you, nobody should. You see all the stuff pulling on you. It's like tons of things. What if your only interest was not to get rid of all these things before you fly? What if you shifted your interest to actually flying and watching those things drop away? Because you understood your relationship to consciousness much more deeply, and you started to integrate with your guides and angels so much so that you just became one with them. And then it didn't matter what you did, because these almost become humorous. And instantaneously, they start to fade. It just becomes this faded memory, this little shadow, until finally you can't find them at all. Does that make sense? So thank you for asking the question, because that's why I say, you guys, questions are just so important in this particular program, because, you know, what they do is they add clarity. So let's do a little activation. I just want to see if there's anyone with questions on the phone. Star 2 if you have any questions. Okay. So imagine from the space and breathe. Oh, and Irene has a question. Irene, what is your question, darling? Hold on. Let me just put you on speaker. So hold on, Irene. Let me just get you on speaker, and away we go. So, dear Irene, what is your question?
Well, I hope this is the same lines of what we're talking about. With flight school, everything that you talk about, it all resonates with me. And I keep getting hung up on being away from my family. I get hung up from, I love being a mother.
Yes.
15 years ago, if you would have asked me that, I would have said, no way, I'm not a mom, that's not my thing, I like doing my own thing. But then, oops, the universe decided that there was something better for me, and I love it.
Great.
And I don't know if my ego, I don't know what it is that says, I don't want things to change as far as my son and my husband. I want to be here with them. So how do I go and fly?
Oh, Irene, that's such a great... Okay, so you guys, I want everyone to listen to Irene's question. I'm going to say it again, and thank you so much. It's such an amazing question, Irene. Okay, so Irene, are you willing to dance with me a little bit on this?
Yes.
That was not convincing, Irene. Because here's the thing. Isn't the calling, you know, Irene, I'm going to say this. I remember having a conversation with someone this year about flight school, and she may be on the line, I don't know, but I love and adore her very much. And in the conversation, I remember that she was coming at flight school, like doing flight school, as though she was broken and she needed fixing, and flight school is going to fix her. Can you see how that just completely doesn't work?
No, that doesn't work. No.
Right, because if you can you see that flight school actually is the opposite of fixing? It assumes
no, it's not fixing.
Right, it assumes already that you have everyone has the wherewithal to be able to dance directly with consciousness. It assumes that. Can you get that?
Yeah, okay, uh-huh.
Okay, so within your question, which is, so let's take that conversation and let's take it to a new level. And Irene, I just want to make sure that, let me just make sure that I don't have this on. There we go. Okay. You want to make sure you have any sound off, okay? Like if you have the computer on as well or anything, that I just want to make sure that that's off. So I'm going to show you something, okay, girlfriends? Okay.
Okay, I'm here. I'm putting you on mute when I'm listening.
Okay, no problem. So let's just talk about something, okay? The truth of who you are is this. The truth of who you are is basically dreamed into existence in response to every one of the 7.5 billion people that came before you. And I'm not talking about 7.5 billion people that are on the planet now. There's about that many people who actually ever existed. So everything they ever asked for, dreamed of, they had the contrast and therefore yearned out of their cells that this world should be more harmonious and that we should honor each other and have more compassion. The billions of people's desires have landed you here on the planet. You were dreamed into existence by all of consciousness. And here you are, and you've found a certain flow, haven't you, with your kids and with your family?
Yes.
And do you enjoy your kids and family?
Love it. Love it.
So is there anything to fix?
To fix? No, I don't think I have anything to fix. I want to fly more. I know there's more.
Bingo.
So I want to enjoy it.
So your deepest
I want to enjoy them.
Go ahead. You want to enjoy them.
Yeah, no, just deeper, more so. I mean, I know that it could be even more. I mean, I can't imagine that it could be more, but I know that there is. Like
So
I can, but I can't.
So in the conversation that I had with that woman that I was talking about, when we have the conversation about flight school, we got to the conclusion that she's, she totally had like a huge aha just in the conversation that, had her see how expansive she actually was, and she started enjoying her life before flight school even started. And then she's like, oh, now I don't want to take flight school. But isn't it interesting? So for all of you, I really want you to hear what Irene is saying. There's like an amazing life. Whether you think it's amazing or not is irrelevant. But there's this life that you have. And then what we're called to is that we know we can express more. We know that there's ways that we can contribute more. We know there's even more fulfillment available. So let me ask you some questions, Irene. Do you think that would make your children or your husband love you? And
I'm sorry, I dropped for just a moment. You're going to ask me a question. I'm sorry.
Yes. Do you think that you shining your light more would have your family love you less?
Love me less? No.
Do you think that if you were more of even more of yourself, if there was even more of yourself, if they already adore you, if there was more of yourself, would they adore you less or more?
More.
Joy, right?
Yeah.
So now, can I ask you, will things change?
Wait, will they change?
If you become more adorable to everyone around you, will they have to change in response?
I'm lost. I don't know.
Of course they will, because you'll be different, right? You changed. Right? Do you get that?
So I changed it. Yes, okay.
Okay. The only thing I can tell you, Irene, is that the inevitable direction of the entire universe is forward and out. Do you get what I'm saying? It's forward and out, which means that it's constantly creating upon itself.
Right.
So, are you a function of the universe? Are you made of particles of the universe? Are you in the flow with the entire universe?
Yes.
Okay. So inevitably, if you don't follow the calling of consciousness saying, come here, Irene, like consciousness is tickling your telomeres, right? Did you follow the tickle of your telomeres? Did you follow the tickle of your cells when you changed to be in love with the flow and with your family, to make all the changes that you made to be in this beautiful flow that you're in? Did you have to make some changes to do that?
Do I make changes? I don't know. I'm trying to be me. I don't know that I changed. That's I guess the part I'm confused. I'm just trying whatever presents next. I'm doing it.
Great. And
I guess I'm trying to.
Good. And so you're making choices and you're changing, right?
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm changing.
Okay, and how does it feel to do what presents? How does it feel to do what's right in front of you? Literally the flow of the universe, expanding forward, presenting new opportunities, and you follow them. How has it gone so far?
Oh, it's awesome. When I do that and I just leap forward and not think about it, it's wonderful.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
So my next question to you is this. The only thing that matters is that you got tickled by an idea. And you already know the love that you are. You already know that the mom that you are. You already know the husband that you have. You don't even know that on some trips you can invite your husband. You don't even know that the conversations that you'll have will take you deeper than you've ever been before, and there'll just be so much smushiness. But you can see how the mind, it sort of has a perception that it's sort of future projected, that you're not even going to stay on the same trajectory that you're already on, right?
Right.
And
right.
And who's been in charge of your life? Who's been in charge of your part of the dance so far? Hasn't it been you?
In charge of my part of the dance with my family and with my husband, or just...
Yeah, you have, right?
In general? I make, yeah.
You make the choices. And you have an idea of what you want more of, don't you?
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Cool. So if you're in charge of the dance and you have an idea of what you want more of, but you don't know how to get there, and then what shows up in front of you is something that actually says, okay, let me show you. What if the mind is complicating it, but in actuality, it's just that?
Right.
It's just that simple. You asked, the universe responded, it's in front of you, and then the change seems really, really big, and the mind freaked out, but in reality, so far everything's happened for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Uh-huh. Just saying.
Yeah.
So now the question, and I appreciate the question, my dear, because people are now going to be asking, yeah, but what if I don't like the trajectory of my life? Yeah, but you still have clarity on what you want. And the expansive flow of the entire universe is always happening for you. It can never not happen for you. Sometimes it doesn't look like what you expect, but the you that expects something is really the part of you that's trying to protect you from actually expanding forward. The thing about becoming fully yourself is that it actually blows away everything that isn't you. It has to. And you can imagine that the more you become, the more you adore yourself, and of course, the more others adore you. Some people might not adore you because they'd rather you stay the same. But the chances are, Irene, if they already adore you, that likelihood is slim to none.
Right. Okay. Yes, I'm getting, I get it. And I think my ego is worried about the how. How is this going to work? How am I going to pay for it? How am I going to, how? And that's just the mind. That's what's stuck. I think that's really what's
and that's
going on.
the reason why, if anyone here is actually interested in flight school, you can email, and Irene, you should do this. Just email Jeannie at zookeeper@thewideawakening.com. Okay? And just ask her for a discovery session with me, and we'll actually go through all of that. We'll answer all the mind's questions, and you'll know for sure yes or no at the end of that. And the cool thing about a discovery, the cool thing about a discovery session with me is that it's first of all, it's a very powerful. We have a very juicy conversation about your life that's going to move some energy. But the other cool thing about the discovery session for flight school is that I am completely detached from whether you do it or not. I really, truly want the perfect person, want the perfect people. So it's definitely not about making sure whoever gets on a discovery call does flight school. It's about, let's be on that. It is a discovery session. Let's discover how you can do it, how it works, answer your questions, all that kind of stuff, okay? So the next piece, you guys, there's some stuff before, I really want the people in flight school to share. I want to say, I suppose I want to share one more thing, and I bet you anything, the people in flight school are sitting there going, Jennifer, you didn't say this, you should really say this, how come you didn't say this? And you know what, you guys, if you're thinking of something you want to share with people about flight school, I just really recommend that you say it when I bring you live, because you know there's only so much time that we have tonight, and I want to make sure that we honor everybody's time. There's a few concepts I want to talk about that I think are important in flight school, and I'd love to hear some comments from flight school people if they really, you know, if they can see that this is something that happened. The first concept that you'll hear me talking about is embodiment. Okay, so this is going to sound crazy, and Heather, you're from Limitless Women. I love you. Thank you so much for coming. What I want to share with you is the concept of embodiment. So for all of you who have done the work before, I want you to let go of what you think it is. For those of you who are going, what the hell is that? I'm about to share with you. But again, I don't want you to think about it conceptually. What we're going to do is we're going to activate a possibility within you that perhaps you've never even considered before. By activating a possibility within you, you actually change your cellular makeup to be open to this actually happening. So just the idea of talking about it is already changing you, okay? I don't know if you guys realize this, but I have all these beautiful faces in my back office that I can see. Hi, Kayla, and hi, Kat, and hi, Manisha, and hi, everybody. Okay, so embodiment. This is what it means. It actually contains the word body, right? Embodiment. It contains the word body, except with an I. So embodiment means this. Now, one of the things that happened to me earlier on in my career when I was working at a big multinational, I almost said it, I just try to keep that pretty private. When I was working there, what happened is I got really sick. I got really sick, and I left my job, and I knew that I had to do something to get myself better. I started diving into holistic nutrition after spending about $30,000 on all sorts of doctors and modalities and traveling places and everything to try to get myself detoxified, antidepressed, away from candida. I mean, I had so many things wrong with me from all the chemicals that had affected me from exposing myself to a whole bunch of chemicals, not drugs so much as I was finishing the bottom of a boat that I couldn't afford to pay someone for, and I really should have paid someone for it, let me just tell you. But no, because I wouldn't be here otherwise. So I went to a holistic nutritionist after that $30,000, and it actually changed my life because I got to see the physical part. The physical part is all of the detoxification, all of the vitamins that I took, all of the restrictions of diet and all that kind of stuff. But there came a point I developed one of the largest holistic nutrition practices in Canada. I mean, it was very, very, people would come from all over the world because I was so passionate about what nutrition had done for me. But there came a point where I realized, wait a second, I have to take pills every day. I have to restrict my diet. I have to do cleanses like 4 times a year, or I start going backwards and start having all the things I used to have. That ain't right. There's something wrong with that. I know that I'm a divine child of an infinite universe. I know that I'm in a direct dance with consciousness. What the hell is missing? What is missing? And what happened to me is after, it's a long story and I'll make it very short, but I had someone come in that had a serious issue. She was going to die of a brain tumor and she had migraines all the time. One of the issues I was still suffering from was migraines. And I got very scared because I thought the only thing I hadn't explored is that I have a brain tumor. Now I'm freaking out about this brain tumor I supposedly have, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a brain tumor. And then I'm like, what do I do with this information? And then I got really scared, and I said, okay, I'm done. If there is, at that time I said a God, like creation, like something out there, show me how you transcend that. If I am here as a divine child of you dream me into being. Like, I was mad. I said, prove it. Show me. I want to see. And that night, I went to bed and I had an awakened dream. And in the awakened dream, what I saw was that human beings, and trust me, you guys, I have never, up until that point, I wasn't what I call a woo-woo. I definitely was not like, I love the science of nutrition. All the people that were on the woo-woo of the holistic stuff, I was like, those people are crazy. They are full of it. I don't believe it. But that night, I became one of them. So I just started seeing that human beings have three-dimensional, two-stranded DNA that gives them their physical characteristics. But they have multi-dimensional DNA, and every single human being has at least 12 strands of DNA that actually give you your gifts, your abilities, the ability to see energy, the ability to go 30,000 feet, which most of you have. I can tell you that most of the people that work with me can look at the world from 30,000 feet or look at a person from 30,000 feet and see what they're afraid of or what's going on in the world or why those politicians are doing that. There's like a big picture ability of like what's really going on, rather than sometimes we get caught up in the minutia, but we still have that ability to see why our parents are fighting with each other. We know why the neighbors don't get along. We can see all of it, right? So that was one of the abilities, but there are 12 strands, there are like 24 innate abilities that every human being comes with. And so I saw that this multidimensional DNA was connected to our junk DNA. It was also connected to all of the aspects of our brain that aren't fully utilized. And I realized that there was a way of integrating fully with all those abilities. And in fact, we were designed to integrate with all of those abilities. And we're supposed to connect them. They are connected to us. That's how we have instincts. Then, in fact, I started studying science. I started looking around, and I saw that people are studying biophotons coming off of trees and plants, and that those biophotons we also emanate. And then, in fact, there's biophotons everywhere, and they're exchanging with our cells. That consciousness is constantly talking to us, and I actually saw that our instincts and our intuitions come from those biophotons because consciousness loves us so much that we're in a constant communion with consciousness, but we're so caught up in our head and survival that we never get on with thriving, with flying. That's what flight school is. It's integrating fully with all of those abilities, so you really don't give a hoot about survival anymore because you're too busy actually going direct with consciousness. You still do the things to survive, the in a body on a planet things. But can you see how, as you go direct, as you integrate, as you embody your gifts and abilities, what happens is your default way of being changes. Because the way you experience the world is no longer from a place of fear. It's from a place of all you want to do is create. Does this make sense? Am I nuts? Are you getting what are you picking up what I'm putting down? So I hope for all of you, you're really getting what that means, embodiment. Okay? So the next concept before we hear from some people is the concept of small choices making a huge difference. That when we feel the call, that instinct that I mentioned at the very beginning, when I mentioned that idea of instinct, an instinct is all of consciousness speaking to you through biophoton packages of information that you're receiving through your cellular receptor sites that your body is then interpreting. It's not a brain thing. The reason why it's so hard for people to get on with thriving is because survival is from the strategies in the mind, but thriving is from the instincts in the cells. Do you get that? Thriving only comes from instincts. You can only thrive when you're in a dance with life that is beyond the struggle of the strategies. The mind has you be able to survive. Sometimes you can thrive a little bit, but then you get attached to the results, and then it'll become struggle again, and you go through these cycles. Consistent thriving requires that you actually embody those skill sets that have you interact with the infinite wisdom that created you and that sent you on the trajectory of your piece of the puzzle. Your piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth is not a static thing. It's actually a trajectory that you're going on. Flight school is not something that gets you to an end product. It's something that sends you on a trajectory in your life of constantly figuring out, of constantly being curious about how can I fly more, because it's fun. Because the purpose of life is enjoyment. The purpose of life is not learning or growing or surviving. The purpose of life is for you to actually live it. That's why it's called life. But fully living it when you don't have all of the abilities to be able to access everything that's available to you makes it pretty damn hard. So that concept of small choices, meaning, did I follow my, I was talking to someone the other day who was looking, and I'm just going to bring a couple of people on from flight school from before. I was talking to someone from Australia, and she was saying, we had this conversation, and she said, the problem is I can't trust myself. I've made so many choices that ended up not very productive. And I said, the problem is not that you can't trust yourself. The problem is that you haven't listened to your instincts. You can trust your instincts 100%, but then what you did is you followed the strategies in your mind, the society, that you made choices in business, you made choices in relationship based on what you should do. And every time your instincts knew, didn't they? And she said, yep. I said, so can you trust yourself? She goes, yes, I can trust myself every time. I said, isn't it an interesting paradigm shift? That it's not about trusting yourself. Yourself is good. You're good to go. What you can't trust is egocentric, power-based control environments that humanity has created to cope with the illusion that we're all limited. As soon as you trust that, and that's what she did, that's when you get in a bit of a mess. Right? And by the way, Tina said, instead of, I said, are you picking up what I'm putting down? Tina said, I'm smelling what you're stepping in. Nice, thanks. So if there are any questions, again, I'm going to say this, that I'm going to talk about what is involved in this 12-month journey, just for everyone. And I'm going to do it quickly at first, and then I'm going to go into it more in depth. But then we're going to hear from some people who have done flight school before. And, yeah, who I love. And so this is what flight school entails, because it's very, especially after the third year, you start to fine-tune it pretty good, and you start to see what works and what doesn't. And actually, before I even do that, I'd love to bring, Dave, if you can bring, I see Kayla on my screen. Can you bring Kayla live? Hey, Kayla. Hey, hold on. There we go. How's it going? Can I hear you? Oh, I can't hear you still. Are you on mute? Did you mute your microphone?
Maybe.
There we go.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. So,
how about now?
Kayla, if you speak really loud, tell me, like, what you did flight school not last year, but the year before.
Oh wow, yeah. Okay.
What was it for you? What happened for you? What assisted you? What changed?
Oh my God.
Or what would you want to tell people who are considering it?
Well, I would tell them that if they have any kind of concerns, which typically is the ego, to definitely have the discovery session, because if it's not a fit, it's not a fit. And if it is a fit, you're going to know it's a fit.
Yes. And
So,
what happened to you? Like,
okay.
what's the paradigm? What happened to you? How did it help you?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so how much time do I have?
Like, let's say a minute and a half. I know.
Oh, come on, sister. Okay, so a lot of stuff happens in flight school, and your ego is going to flip shit. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry. Yes.
We did.
Well,
So it's
I did. So it's going to flip out from time to time, and you're going to learn some really amazing tools to assist you to get back to that barometer that Jennifer was just talking about, and trusting yourself. And you're going to learn how to live your life in flow without expectation of what your little pea brain thinks it should look like. And you're probably going to end up going down roads you couldn't have even imagined anyways.
Did it turn out the way you thought, or was it like way different or beyond that?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't have a whole lot of thoughts about it. I'm kind of like that, Jen. You know me. I just kind of, I don't try and figure it out, and I never have. So I don't really have that part of me that's on. But
Yeah.
my family, you had somebody on. What was her name?
Irene.
Irene, beautiful Irene. Oh my goodness. Lots of stuff around family. I have 2 amazing daughters who are my world. Anyone who got to know me through flight school, which was everyone, and then some from the other flight school too,
Yeah.
they are my world. And I loved being a part of flight school because it actually shifted so much for my kids. So much. I can't even now, my kids, I'm no longer a weirdo. They're just as weird as I am, which is awesome.
And didn't it set you, because what I witnessed in your life, it set you free and it set them free?
Oh my gosh, totally. And my husband. I mean, even though he was really being triggered because, hey, he lives with a trigger.
Yeah.
And then he met you. Well, there's 2 triggers.
Right.
So for him, it was, like I said, but the great thing about that was his ego was triggered, but then he learned that and how to recognize when it's his ego that's being triggered.
Right.
So how awesome is that? So now I have this amazing man who gets me as much as anybody ever would. And
You shifted and everything shifted around you is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. I mean, it can't not shift. It's fractally impossible. And I really want to share that story about the ass crack. I'm just saying. That'll take more than a minute. So.
Yeah, that will take more than a minute. I got to make sure we stick to our time, Kayla, but I can summarize by saying, let's just say that we climbed up something and Kayla is petrified of heights. And she ended up completely just really having the fear, really having a physical experience of having the fear and doing it anyways. And it changes everything. It's not just that fear that it changes absolutely everything, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it without a doubt. And I had such an awakening moment of, first of all, these, the survival mode and all of this stuff that was really wanting to integrate with me. And I had all these safety mechanisms in place that I wasn't even aware of, because I thought for sure when we left on that hike, I'm going to the top. I hadn't even considered that I might get triggered or be in fear. It didn't even come up until I got there.
Yeah.
Frozen in fear. But what happened was, when I was able to, with your assistance, tap into that part of me that really wanted to come in and integrate, and I mean really come in, it was amazing. And yes, I crawled up the side of this mountain with Jennifer's hand on my ass. I'm just saying. But what was really cool was as this was happening and I was experiencing this shift, not just physically, but from beyond my physical body, to witness humanity, these people who I didn't even know, stepping off to the side, and I might add the cliff side, the really steep side, actually cheering me on. They don't even know me, and they're saying, "You got this, you're almost there, way to go." And I was absolutely in tears.
You were living the metaphor of all of your guides and angels, because that's exactly, it's like activating exactly what it looks like to live with guides and angels. That's exactly what they're doing. They have their hand on your butt the whole time.
Yes. And yeah, so it was an amazing moment, and I mean, I'm emotional right now just thinking back to it, because that was the beginning of some really big shifts, and it got easier and simpler, and
the big chunks usually happen at the beginning, and then it's like. So Kayla, I just want to thank you, and I love you so dearly. Thank you for
coming. Love you.
So, and you guys heard that Kayla say that it continues. You know that she's still on the trajectory. She's still doing it. She hasn't done flight school for a year, so it's an amazing thing. So, the next thing that I want to say is what is flight school? What exactly is it? So it's a year of assisting you to entirely embody the truth of who you are, and the experiences are set up so that you do it on the fast track. This isn't intellectual. This is entirely experiential. So what happens is we're thrown into conversations, we're thrown into expansive creative situations, we're thrown into places that I mean, it's fun, it's silly, it's playful, it's deep, and how that occurs is with 3 trips in the first 6 months. Those free trips, just for you, Irene, none of them are longer than 7 days or so. So it's not a long time away. Those 3 trips are designed very specifically. We go specific places because those places contain the starseed information of where you're from. And they contain conduits to assist you to wake up. And the experiences we have while we're there with other people, all from different places all over the world, each of those people is a conduit and a piece of the puzzle of heaven on earth. They are your cosmic heaven on earth construction crew. You make the cosmic phone call to them, and so even the feeling, if you're feeling, and that's true of anything you want to do. If you're feeling the call to do something like this, it's because it's not just the information about flight school that's calling you. It's your perfect partners in that communion also calling you. And all of the people on the line right now are nodding, like all of the people that I asked if maybe they'd share some words are all nodding their head, because it's true. You will meet the perfect people to actually catalyze, activate, do whatever it is that allows you to remember even more deeply. So how flight school works is very simple. It's 12 months. The first 6 months are called fly. The second 6 months are called flourish. It's called fly because it's about the first half is about embodying all of who you are. See, once you do that and those gifts start to roll and flourish, blossom inside of you, and you get practice with them, you're then able to apply it to the areas of your life that you're able to get practical experience. Some people have written books in the second half. Some people started books. Some people have become artists. Some people have become, people who have, heirloom seeds, and they started a co-op for food. Some people, became one thing and then it changed. But what happened is it wasn't out of strategy. That which they were meant to be actually came to them. as opposed to them trying to figure it out mentally. And that's what happens after you embody the truth of who you are. Everything becomes easier. Everything flows to you, and very little will trigger you. It will take some big circumstances to trigger you, and even then, you look at it as a blessing because you just, 1-800 Flight School, and what happens is we transmute even the biggest fears that you have. So it's never horrible that those things come up. It's also not about your life being all fun and full of games. It's about your life being rich and full of love. That's what it's about. It's not about your life being whatever you think is perfect. It's about more love, more enjoyment, more fulfillment, more richness. And that can come in the form of someone passing away. But we've had many people have their parents or someone they love pass away, and the one person, so much so that she's actually writing a book about the experience. She got so complete that she knew she had to pay that journey forward, and that's someone who's never written a book or even imagined at the beginning of flight school that would happen. You understand? So guys, so there are one-on-one calls the entire time with me. You are pretty much the only people in the world that get one-on-one calls. Even the coaching calls that I have ongoingly are usually with flight school graduates, even after flight school. So then we have people like Laura Gisborne who come and work with us, or we have people like Tom Sewell, who I mentioned early, who comes on a call and kind of activates that going direct vibe. That guy has a completely blessed life. And I'm introducing you to my closest friends who otherwise wouldn't do this kind of stuff. So there's an hour call with them every month. And then every month there's also a group call. Okay, and in that group call there are some, we touch on a subject every month. We pick the subjects that most affect people's lives. In other words, going direct with your guides and angels, integrating with them, understanding what your purpose is, and being very clear, and then dancing with life in the direction of that, not through strategy, but by letting it all come to you so it stops being filled with struggle. We also talk about abundance. We even hopefully have this year someone who's a graduate of flight school working with you on that abundance, who I'm very excited to bring in, because it's about, creating your own economy. And she's brilliant. She's actually a CA who lives in this woo-woo world. It's awesome. The next thing is we also look at love and your communication a little bit. Kayla touched on it a little bit, because when we have attachments and expectations of people, what it does is it gets superimposed on the people around us, and it really does ruin relationships, because you're not actually dancing with who they are. You're dancing with who you wish they were, and then making them wrong every time they don't show up that way. If you actually were so innately wired to see who they really were, you would fall in love instantly, and you wouldn't care that they weren't meeting your expectations. So if you already have that with someone, you just have more of it. That's all. You just embody more of it. So the next thing is, by the time the second half of flight school happens, we're starting to choose projects. And I'm thinking of someone in last year's flight school who we chose a project together that was around his relationship, but it was like, that relationship conversation was interesting, but what he discovered, started to become a master of, is redirects. Because there was no movement in his relationship based on the homework, we actually we did what presents. We let ourselves be redirected without drama, without judgment. And we actually found a project, and he's changing the culture of his company because of that project. He continues to blossom it forward. And he got to apply everything he learned in the first half. Very powerful. Still in the second half, we're having one-on-ones. We have more what I call VIP retreats, where I might go up to my family cabin and you guys all come with me. Or I might go to, a beautiful retreat in North Carolina and you guys all show up. Everywhere we go on the trips, we have a chef with us who also happens to be a very powerful facilitator these days, Adam Lamb, and he's also like an incredible chef. It's all wheat-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, you know, full of taste. He's like amazing and also accommodating vegans and vegetarians. He's like become a genius at it at this point. So if you have sensitivities, it doesn't even matter. And the second person that's with us is Jeannie Selda, who we basically triangulate you. You can run, but you cannot hide because we just see you. We just infuse you with the truth of who you are so much that there's no running from it. And for some people, that's really super scary. And it's not actually you that's scared, it's your ego, because that's what gets scared when you remember who you are. It's the only thing that can get scared when you remember who you are. You should be scared, ego, but you shouldn't be. You should be excited. So, all right. I'm going to hear from, I think, so again, I'm just going to say, you guys, you know, this call was, you know, to activate what's possible, what flying looks like. And for us, the container for flying is flight school. And really the end product of this conversation is, maybe for some of you, it's like, I never even, so just a conversation. For some of you, you're here and you're like, that's impossible. I could never do that program. It's like $28,888. Even if it's spread over a year, there's no way I could do that. So that might be where your head is. What I want you to do is just let go of that. Let's just have no idea. Let's be open to the or better together, okay? Because there's a lot of people that do flight school that think that they can't, and yet they end up doing it. So just let go. And I'm glad some of you are saying, Tina's like, my ego is very, very scared. So that's good. I'm glad. It should. The more scared your ego is, then the more you know. This is like, you know, I was talking to Kat the other day, who I'm going to bring up now, Catherine. Actually, Dave, if you can bring Catherine live, that would be awesome. That would be amazing. So, Kat, we were having that conversation. Can I hear you? Can you hear me and I can hear you?
I don't think my...
Oh, I can hear you. Yay.
There.
Yep.
I'm back. Here I am.
Yay. So, Kat, do you remember when we were having the conversation and you said it's almost like when you start flying, the collective ego knows you're changing the world, and so at first it kind of tries its hardest to...
Yeah, absolutely. It
brings up...
we are such very powerful beings, all of us, that and that's been my journey, discovering that. I went from literally a diagnosis that I was dying of ovarian cancer. First of all, I was thinking about flight school. I was talking to you, and then I got my diagnosis. And then I wasn't going to take flight school because apparently I was going to need multiple surgeries and so on and so on, but I decided that I'm going to live till I die, so I took flight school. And you can say miracles happen because I didn't have cancer at all after that. So I went from being overwhelmed with the to-dos, literally surviving life, just very, very busy, very lonely. No one understood me. No one got me. I was the weird one always, all my life since I was a child, to realizing that what an incredible gift it is to be in a body on a planet, loving my body and loving myself, and what incredible courage it takes for everyone to realize that and to step into all that they are is a journey that there are no words for. But it's to be that perceptively vulnerable is where your power actually is where your balance is where your power lies. It opens your heart, which lets all the universe in. I had boxed myself into a tiny little box, which kept me safe perceptively, but kept all the universe out. So discovering the fact that I am creator consciousness and I am an infinite being and how powerful I am has been the journey that flight school opened up for me.
Thanks, Kat. And you just continue, you courageously move forward. And I think probably that first experience that you had, was pretty integral to that, because you're just truly one of the most unstoppable, and you were pretty stoppable at first.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
I was full. So I had fear. I was so fearful. Had so many fears, and I was so safe. So many safety issues, and I was carrying everyone. And so as you were saying, by me shifting, I have shifted everyone around me. The world around me has shifted.
Yes. Yep.
And
Yeah.
every day I wake up and I just can't even believe the stuff that happens now.
Well, I'm so glad we met. I'm so glad you didn't get out of your way. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you've been on this journey. And Kat was in the first flight school way back
Yes.
when. Those guys had a very unique journey, because we were really inventing it as we go, and just I just love you. Anyways, thank you for
Love
sharing.
you. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and Kayla is saying, "Beautiful Catherine, love you." So,
love you, Kayla.
and the next thing I would love to do is, and I'm sorry for people on Instant Teleseminar, I had myself plugged in. I do apologize. What I would love to do at this point is I would actually love to get everybody from Instant Teleseminar. I would love to call on Carol as well about, I think, Carol, you'd be a perfect person to share I think you'd be a perfect person to share your experience. And as I do that, it's so funny. I just make myself laugh sometimes. So guys, I hope, does anyone have any questions about flight school? So we address every main area of life. I am constantly and consistently in activation mode with everyone who's in the program. We're having one-on-ones. You're working with each other. There's a private Facebook page. You get to get out of your own way for free for a very long time afterwards. Quantum wake-up calls are free for basically the remainder of the time that we do them. So for however long that is. Also, with Flight School, we include the entire first trip aside from the flight to that trip. We also include innate abilities, so it's actually integral to the journey that you take innate abilities again before you do flight school. So all of those things are part of doing flight school, and then we apply everything you've learned in a year-long experiential journey that actually changes every aspect of your life into congruency, so you're in the flow with the entire universe. You're in the flow of the trajectory that consciousness sent you on before you got here. So everything starts to be a dance. And at first what happens is anything that's inconsistent will come up right in your face. And we have, it only requires 2 ingredients. 1, that you're willing to move through it, and 2, that you have the courage to say yes to what's actually presenting. And those are the only 2 ingredients that are important. And I'd love, Carol, if you would share, I don't know if you're still there. No, I don't think she is there anymore. So I think really that you guys have got a sense. I really think that this journey is for specific people. I know that if your telomeres are being tickled and you're really afraid, it's probably a good sign that you should do a discovery session with me. Because if you're really afraid, even if you're not afraid, you're just called. You don't even have to be afraid. If you're just either really afraid or really excited, those are really the 2, you really can't wait, or you're really afraid. It's not you that's afraid. It's actually the truth of who you are that's being called forth, that's displacing your ego. Your ego feels like it's being pushed out, like it's going to die. And that's the beautiful part of it. That will be the trajectory that you're on. All those fears will start dissipating as you practice the truth of who you are and integrate with all of your gifts. So, guys, just so blessed. I want to hear if there's any more questions, and we're going to do a final activation if there aren't. Does anyone have any questions about Get Out of Your Way? Star 2 if you're on Instant Teleseminar. And you can type them in if you're in our webinar jam. So I think what I'm going to do is just give you time to write in some questions, and I'm going to go to Anne. Anne, are you there, my dear?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Anne. I talked to you earlier today. I know that, I mean, I was just so blessed by that conversation. I just love everyone to hear what your feedback is on, you know, Anne's from British Columbia, and she's been married a long time, and she's been working on some amazing projects around planet Earth and all that kind of stuff. But what I'd love to hear from you, Anne, is what that journey has meant to you. What happened to you in that journey?
Basically, it changed my life. It changed who I am or who I felt I am. I feel like I've done a complete 180. I was afraid of life. Kayla was afraid of heights. I was afraid of being seen. And going through flight school pushed me way past my limits of being comfortable. And now the whole concept of leaning in. I can have a conversation with almost anybody, and especially my husband, because that's what I was called to do. So, you know, I just, for me personally, I'm less nervous, less stressed out about things. I don't compare myself nearly as much as I used to. And the whole sort of doing what presents, and sort of all the different things we did in flight school.
Yes.
Each one was sort of building up on the past.
Yes.
And yeah, I can't imagine my life without it.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't imagine mine without it either. So yeah, and you got on with that beautiful business of yours too. You let yourself be seen totally, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. So cool, dude.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing, Anne. I just really appreciate it. I know it's hard to explain when you've been through a year that basically wakes you up to actually say it in a very few words. I find it hard myself.
Yeah.
But
and you know, Jennifer.
Yes.
Something for those who aren't sure, kind of what you've talked about is get past the fear. I didn't know what I was going into, but all the different things that we're doing, I'm going, oh shit, I got to do that, and I did it. Yeah. And it's like, if I can do it, anybody can. I mean, I hid for 60 years. So I would, if your heart and your cells and your instincts are telling you to do it, I would do it.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. I love you.
I love you too. So, you guys, again, it's zookeeper@thewideawakening.com, and you can just email Jeannie if you want to do a discovery session with me. I'll probably only take like a maximum of 10 discovery sessions because we really don't have very many spots left. So just make sure, and I only have limited time because we're going to Maui, so I want to make sure we get those in. So please email her. And I just wanted to get one more person in to share because I know, Carol, for you. Hi, Carol. Hey, so Carol, my dear, what was flight school for you? What would you say? What do you want people to know about it?
I guess the main thing is going into it. It was a yes for me, but I definitely had all the same things that were brought up tonight that you can easily get in your head about. But I was so ready to take it. I think it was Irene at the beginning. She talked about just diving in deeper, not about fixing yourself. None of that. It's just like life is great, and I know that the possibilities are endless. And jumping into this with all that for me, just diving in completely, I definitely could have been held back by the size of my family, the amount of children I was leaving behind. But what I came to see is that I was never doing it for me in the end. It was just so beyond me. And I will never know the impact that experience has had, not only on myself, but everyone else's life that I touch, that I affect, and most specifically my family, of course. So,
and Carol, like, just to be clear, everyone, Irene, Carol has 8 children. So you got to understand, it's like you can have all sorts of excuses about carrying or being sad that you're going to miss something, but did you miss anything, Carol? Like, was it about missing anyone?
I think that had I not done this, I would have missed out on more than I do now, because when I was with my family, I was so much more present. I was learning all the concepts that on a surface level you can learn, but this life takes you warp speed into all the concepts of detaching from identities and not carrying and not making it about yourself, not taking it personally, not caring to being seen anymore, and just like trusting. For me, it was like a hardcore, like learning to trust my inner knowingness. And now it's just like, it's just like it's not even a moment's thought. It's just like I know it, and there's no more contemplation, no more analysis of it. I was just talking with my husband about it this morning, and he's not one to follow any of this stuff, but just me diving into it affected him, and it's opened up conversation I could never have with him before. And with my kids, every time I'd leave on a trip, I knew they were all being affected. I'd come home and they were all changed. They were on this life school experience with me, absolutely.
Awesome. And do you think, so one of the concerns people have is like, can you really go backwards? Like, I'm sure you could make yourself go back to where you were, but can you, is it even possible?
It is, and it's funny you say that. My last newsletter I just wrote last week was on that topic. How a lot of people were showing up in my life saying, I'm so done, and I just want to go back the way it was. It's like you can't. And why would you want to? Once you've seen the expansive possibilities that are there available, the freedom from nothing. I mean, I'm not saying I've perfected every aspect of my life. Far from it. It's a lifelong journey. But through flight school, through this safe space, this how do you always call it, Jen? Like you create this, not a cocoon, but like
it's like a container or a sanctuary.
A container.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Where we all exchange. It's like these 15 amazing people I was journeying with, plus Jeannie, plus Adam, and of course Jen. It's like I'm experiencing through their sharing, through their life journey, and it's like, so it's completely multiplied and exponential and limitless, and just it's freedom. It's pure freedom. I mean, it's as much as you're wanting to dive in, I suppose, at the end of the day, but I can't say enough about what it's been for me. For sure, I wouldn't in a heartbeat. Even money-wise, like that could easily have been a deterrent, and it's like, boom, unexpected inheritance check in my mailbox literally a week before I made the decision. Like, it's sometimes that happens, it's that blatant. Other times it's like you gotta just dive in, close your eyes, dive in, and know that you really get to see the universe has your back because you're living it. Jen, you always teach it within context of the trip. Everything is being played out. The lessons are being learned within the experience, within the hike, within the conversations, within whatever comes up with issues. you know, like fun stuff. We all get triggered by each other, and then we get to look at that stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's you can't help but find harmony with your life and other people, and it changes how you relate to everybody and everything. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, it redefined love altogether. Like love with everything and everyone in my life. It's completely redefined now.
And have you noticed since, Kara, I know what's happening in your life, but since, isn't it amazing how everything comes to you, huh?
How everything comes to us, sorry?
How everything comes to you, how everything is coming.
Oh, like big time. Like my husband gets laid off, people just think devastation. No, guess what? He's my partner in business now. We can fly forward together, and now, et cetera, right? It's like you don't see anything as a tragedy. You see it as a synchronicity and a beautiful, like, an opportunity, a new door that's open. And so, it continues. I know it'll reflect for the rest of my life. There'll be impact from this last year.
I love you. Thank you for sharing.
I love you too.
I love you tons. Thank you for sharing, Carol. So much. And you guys, that's the other thing. You just fall in love. You got to read it. Carol's right. You got to redefine what love is. So everyone, I think we can conclude. I think you guys have got an idea, and that really was the point. And to open and to activate and to help you see another way. And I know there are still that we had lots of past flight school people, and I want to thank you all for being willing to share. I just called on whoever presented, so I want you to know that I love you for offering, and I know you have so much to share, and I'm sure if you have something to say that didn't get said, please say it. Please email it to us, guys, because we'll put it on the email tomorrow so that your voices get heard too if you want to share with people. So, flight school. In order to find out more about flight school, you can most certainly go to you can find out more about what flight school is all about. It's interesting. You can find out more about what flight school is all about at www.thewideawakening.com. And forgive me, I'm going to say /flight school because I'm not sure if the final page was done, but I know for sure that information is there. Jeannie, if you want to come in and tell me what the correct one is, or text it to me if that's incorrect. And so you guys also, if you're called to it, just have the conversation. Even to the point of some of you don't know if financially you can do it. We even do a spreadsheet. I'll do it with you. It's life-changing just to do the spreadsheet, I promise you. There are people that have gone on journeys they never would have gone on just from doing that spreadsheet. I'm so happy to help you through the process. I want to thank everybody on the line right now. I want to thank everybody from flight school who came to play. Thank you everyone who stuck around for this beautiful conversation and allowed themselves to be activated and find out more. For people who are inquiring, I know Heather, I'm so glad that you came here to commune with us. I know you just got an email today about it, so I'm so happy you were here. And to Irene and people like Irene, that it's like your telomeres are being tickled and you're up for a conversation. Make sure. I'm just, feeling blessed to be having those conversations and know that lots will happen expansively in that conversation. And finally, one last activation. For everyone that's on the line right now and everyone that listens to the recording, breathe for a second and just get into yourselves, and maybe even close your eyes if you want. It doesn't matter if you cross your legs or cross your eyes or cross your fingers. The consciousness really doesn't care because you are creator consciousness incarnate. Creator consciousness does not concern itself with that. Creator consciousness, you, in human form, creator in human form, you, were dreamed into being as the conglomeration of the skills and the personality traits and the brilliance and the genius and the natural propensities that you are, and all of that was poured through a body that looks exactly like it does right now, because you need to look exactly that way to have the effect on the people around you. That package matters just as much as your spirit. The entire universe knew exactly the trajectories that you could go on in this lifetime that would complement all of humanity in a time of great change. You are the perfect expression of you, and you came here to be nothing else but you, not compared to anybody else, not compared to another's experience, not compared to what you thought it should be, not compared to your expectations, not compared to your family expectations. In truth, it's the easiest journey ever, because it's simply about becoming yourself. The complexity comes moving through all of the layers that we placed on top of that. But as we move through the layers, we get practice in finding ease and flow and going direct with consciousness. And we wake up in the middle of the perfect flow of all of consciousness drawing us forward and calling us. And as we get used to the language of that call, life gets easier and things come to you, and you start feeling the richness of the design of this life, and you expand into all that you came here to be. This is not about fixing someone who is broken. This is about expanding into even more of who you are meant to be, which means more love, more enjoyment, more richness, more fulfillment. There is not only nothing to be afraid of, there is only everything to be thrilled by, to be excited by, to enjoy. Imagine if you woke up in the morning, because this is truly who you are, and instead of worrying about and managing and trying to orchestrate and manipulate life, you simply woke up in a state of show me, dancing directly with exactly what was in perfect flow for you. Even though your logical mind might have a connection fit, it doesn't matter, because you've now learned that that which tries to protect you also protects you from the entire universe coming in. And it's time to let it all come in. And anyone can do it. You can do it. Anyone can do it. And we are all in this together. It's time to stop being alone. It's time to start dancing with each other. It's time to start remembering who we are. And you are so loved that everything but everything is happening for you. And as soon as you know that with every cell of your being, all you want to do is play. So on that note, I just want to tell you I'm thrilled that you are all here. Thank you. Everyone who was in flight school from years before, thank you. And it's just a privilege to be here with everyone. And if you have any questions for me, you can post them on Facebook /Wide Awakening if you wish, or you can email them directly to Jeannie, zookeeper@thewideawakening.com. I look forward to talking to you in those discovery sessions, and if I don't, I know that we're all in this together anyways, and I'm giving you all a great big hug. Thank you, everyone. Mwah, 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 mwah. Mwah.
Thank you for joining us for this Flight School introductory webinar. For more information on Flight School, please visit www.thewideawakening.com/flight school.